Um, I'm just checking this out. So my name's Sean Clark. I'm the current chair of the Computer Arts Society, and this is our second. This is our second annual last year members exhibition. And what we're trying to establish really in the Computer Arts Society is a regular place for people to show work, contemporary and historic. And we've been holding exhibitions here at the BCS for a couple of years now. And with the members show, we get an opportunity to show new work from people who are associated with the Computer Arts Society, who I may not actually know. But by putting an open call out, I think it's a good way of getting interest and people to come along to present us and show us new work. So today we're going to open this second members show. Last year we had 20 pieces selected from about 25 applicants. This year we have 29 pieces selected from over 60 applicants. So the exhibition is certainly growing. And in the future, I would like us to have more space, and maybe we could look at adding 3D work. Maybe we could look at adding video and time-based work as well. But I'm very happy with the collection of work we have at the moment. And this evening, what we're going to do is really have an opportunity to talk to some of the artists. For those of us here, we can go and have a look at the exhibition. For those of you who are online, I have uploaded a catalogue, so you can go through and have a look. Hopefully those of us who are here can have a few glasses of wine and enjoy that. Those of you at home, like Jack, maybe you've got the odd brandy already blowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were we trying to achieve with the members exhibition? Well, as I say, for me personally, I want to try and make contact with more people associated with the Computer Arts Society. And a members exhibition is a great way of doing that. If you advertise an exhibition opportunity, particularly a free one, you often get a lot of interest. Like I say, this year we've had great interest. But importantly, beyond that, I also wanted to start capturing a bit of a zeitgeist for what is happening in digital and computer art at the moment. Now, as I mentioned, we are only looking at 2D work at the moment, and clearly computer work goes way beyond 2D work, time-based and so on, but I think it's a good starting point. And I think what we've achieved this year is a demonstration of that. The sorts of things you'll see within the exhibition are work that is maybe from the traditional generative background, something the Computer Arts Society has been associated with for quite a long time. You also see work from this new generative approach, the generative AI approach. Of course, that has become quite a significant thing in the computer art world over the last probably only a couple of years, really. Maybe some of us might be aware of it lasting longer than that. But in terms of entering the public consciousness, it's really only, I can't believe it's only 2 or 3 years ago before you heard of ChatGPT, maybe less than that. And then we also have work that's created in other ways. It's either created by hand in one case, or it's created using image manipulation software, or it's created using a technique of the artist's own development, that they either programming or they developed a technique. So I think we've got an exhibition that does represent the variety of work taking place at the moment. And it's certainly, compared to last year, having that additional breadth, we advertised it earlier, we had far more applications. It certainly seems to have attracted a whole range of different production techniques, which I'm very happy with. So before I hand over really for an informal opportunity to chat with the artists, both online and offline, I am going to go to the CAS website, because what you will find here go to the home page first. Oh, I'm not sharing yet, am I? You want me to share? I'm not a PC user, and I will have to have someone else do the sharing for me.
Come up. Well done, Sean.
Thank you, Jack. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. So if you go to Computer Arts Society, we're sharing okay now. Yeah.
Just put this up.
Great. So actually, I'll show the website first, but I imagine I can
Yeah.
just do that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, one of the, actually, it's probably worth mentioning is because I have an eyesight problem, I use a Mac with quite a lot of my own tools on. I customize the interface. And so I actually find it very difficult to use someone else's computer. I use Zoom as this, that, and the other. I'm presenting particularly a PC. I don't have all my settings on. And it struck me that as we look at more personalized computer interfaces with the use of AI, this is going to become a bigger and bigger problem, not just for people with an eyesight problem, but you'll go to a computer expecting your personal AI to be in charge and discover that your AI is not there and all your settings are no longer your settings. So personal computers are going to become even more personal to the extent that we probably won't be able to use other people's computers. Anyway, that's an aside. A little bit of background on why I'm not so good at this computer. So if you go to the Computer Arts Society website, what you'll see here is our latest work, including the exhibitions we've been running. And we've been doing a lot of good exhibitions and talks recently. You go to the Computer CAS Member Show 2024, and hot off the press, some pictures of the installation, more of which will be appearing later on. And then importantly, the exhibition catalogue. And I'm going to just present a little bit about this from this. So the catalogue, it's become something that we've done for almost all our exhibitions, and the ones we haven't yet done, we will be producing catalogues for. I think there are just a couple of people I'm going to let in. Is in a lovely pink tone, featuring the image here from Angela, who's going to talk a little bit, I think. You'll have to correct my pronunciation, but Ferraiolo?
Yeah, Ferraiolo, that's great, Sean.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. That image I chose for the cover because if you have a closer look at it, there's so much detail in there. And also it was a colour palette that I thought we hadn't had a pink catalogue before, so it'd be quite good for that. So a couple of reasons. So the members exhibition. We publish this with an ISBN number. Now we publish it online and on paper. It is an official publication, goes to the British Library. And we have two sets of artists. Now, we almost actually had a little bit of a problem because we had so much good work this year. We had 60 applications, and it really wasn't possible just to accept 20. So, but on the other hand, we only have a space here for 20 pieces. So our compromise, which I think is fine, but maybe we'll change it in future, was that we selected some additional work that we felt was important to have in the catalogue, but we didn't have full space for. This isn't really about having a hierarchy of work. This is about just saying there's more work than we have space for. We didn't realise there'd be so much good work, so we will look for more space in the future. I do a short introduction, and then the core artists here. I wonder if it's worth me. No, I'll go through the catalogue before I talk to the individual artists. So you'll see work. Sandra Crisp. There's Angela's piece. With each piece, we have in the digital catalogue web link to information about the artist, together with some text supplied by the artist. I won't read out every artist's name. Well, I might mention a few things. So work, for example, by Jack Tate. This is from one of his electromechanical drawing machines. We have some work which is visually very rich, very stunning. Look here, Brian Reffin-Smith. If you have a closer look at this, you'll see it's in his painting by numbers sort of area of work. Dave and Fanya's work here on Magic Squares, which I think you'll tell us a bit about shortly. Okay, more work here with background information. And this work, you might say, actually is almost in the more traditional CAS area, sort of images that are generated algorithmically in some way. Visualization of data. Multi, you're going to tell us a bit about your work. I particularly like this piece. I like blocks of colour and that sort of thing, and how I produce my own work. Daniel's work here. I thought it was a lovely illustrative, but also has a look of a generative piece as well. Stephen Scrivener, hopefully you'll say a few words about your work.
If I'm forced, yeah.
Yeah, okay, you will be. Like I say, I've known Steve for a very long time. It's great to see him looking at generative work again, but with a twist, as I'm sure you'll explain. More work here. So again, and now we've got maybe a sequential piece here from Graham. I know he's online. If he was available, I'm sure he'd tell us a bit more about it. Generative work in the AI sense. Right. And then the additional pieces, the sort of garden of robotic delights. I think this piece, the information address, is actually where to get an NFT of the work. So we even have some NFT work in the exhibition. David Upton, who is around, I'm sure will tell us a little bit about his work. I'm not expecting big presentations, David. Don't worry about that. More work here. Jeffries. Luciana, who was in last year's exhibition as well. Okay. So, and this piece here, which is generative AI, I believe. And this piece here, which is sort of data visualization of satellites around the Earth. So what you can see in the work is it is very varied. We have work, I guess you would say the work is visualization of data, but we also have work which is generative AI, classical generative work, and then some work with more illustrative in that it's been made by an artist using something in the, like not necessarily Photoshop, but similar sort of tools. And then we have the thank you here. So I think it's a really interesting exhibition, and those of you who are here, you can go and have a look at it. For those of you online, I will be posting pictures, but this catalogue is now available. Maybe some of you have even clicked on the link, exhibition catalogue, and there will be photographs going under here. To my sale, yeah. Also available are a limited number of printed copies. Some people have pre-ordered these. I don't think I have one with me. I have some in the room next door, and those of you who are interested in buying one, I've got a different machine reader, but it is a free PDF download. What I found is that PDF is a great way of making sure that the work gets seen. We distribute the catalogue, and some people quite like the paper copies. I like the paper copies. And in fact, you can see we've got quite a few catalogues now, quite a few exhibitions been running. So what I will do now is I will sort of curate a little discussion, some short presentations from the artists, and I'll start with the online, or sorry, in the in-person artists. And what I'll do is I'll find your picture, and then you can, if you're happy to, say a few words about the work. No need for any slides and so on. I'll get to that. How do I get to that? Scroll. So, I might start with, as you're right in front of me, Dave and Fanya, if that's okay. So, are you happy to come up here and say a few things? Yeah, okay, then people can hear you clearly. So, Dave and Fanya, I'll sort of hand over to you to say 5 minutes or so about the piece. So hopefully everyone out there can see the work on screen. And if you want to have a closer look, remember, look at the catalogue. So if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, that's great. If we start to waffle, just give it a 1 minute warning.
Yeah.
And if there's any questions, please do.
Someone who does that for me.
I've been working with Magic Square since about 1997, I think, and I was at Loughborough University with when Ernest Evans was running CoStart and things, heartbeat-driven Magic Cube artwork that's on a broken computer at the moment. I've come from fine arts through to computing at Loughborough. Fanny came from computer science to art, and we kind of crossed in the middle and been working together ever since. What you see, does anybody not know what a magic square is, by the way? Right, okay. It's a grid of numbers, a square grid of numbers that add up the same in every direction, each row, column, and line. Yeah. So we based our work on this, but we're looking at how can I put it? We're looking at the line that's created when you trace the numbers from 1 to n by n, according to the magic square. And we've got a custom piece of artwork, well, a sort of online piece, an online application that does this for us. So it kind of, you know, to borrow Paul Clay's thing, it takes that line for a walk through the grid. And then while it's walking through the grid, we do several things with it. And what we did with this one, these are tetraminos.
Yes.
And each colour is chosen by the digital root, the number that it lands on. The interesting thing about magic squares, these are 3 order 10s, and we were looking for very different ones. Some of them are very ordered and symmetrical, some are kind of in between, and some look completely chaotic. But they're all based on exactly the same rules. And that's fascinating because you get kind of very regular forms and very irregular forms based on exactly the same procedural rules. So that's what we're basing it on. Do you want to say how many order 10s there are?
Well, so I mean, this is where we're getting into the nitty-gritty here, and maths is really, really fascinating. So just to clarify as well, when Dave says order 10, we're talking about a 10 by 10 grid, number grid that's underlying this. So in order 3, there's only 1 magic square. Order 4, we're talking about exponential growth here. Order 4, there's 880. Order 5, there's 275 million. Order 6, this is cutting edge research here, right? This has only been proven in May 2024, right? Using a cloud a cluster of, you know, computers. And there's roughly, I'm not giving it a process, roughly 1,775 billion order 6 magic squares. Order 10, basically, the number is larger than the number of atoms in the universe, right?
So we picked 3 of them.
It's yeah, exactly. We've only picked 3.
Why did you pick those 3 and present them as a triptych?
There's the contrast between them.
Yeah, because you know, one's very messy. One it produces this very interesting grid of 9 clusters.
Triptych.
Oh.
Because we wanted to show the chaotic and the kind of in between and the very ordered. And I mean, this is just one representation of them. This
is obviously 3 different kind of algorithms to produce them out of those. You know, it's an interesting number. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing this right. It's 2 for whatever 100 quintillion.
She has a name.
It's 2 times 10 to the power of 110.
Wow.
So,
Anyway.
So for the order 4s, we actually did a work that shows all 880 and the patterns that we created from them in 3 different styles, because we can do anything with that pattern of numbers. We can show the numbers, we can show the line that goes through it, we can show blocks of colour, we can show many, many different things. And it's a kind of custom piece of software that we've developed together over the past, God, how long?
Yeah, I mean, we love playing with this, and this is just one of the different kinds of visualizations that we can do with magic squares.
And this is only the 2nd print that that's come out of that work. I'm not used to working with flat pieces of paper.
Yeah. Normally we like animating them as well. I mean, this particular version of this doesn't tend to well, it doesn't suit itself for animation, but there's other versions that we do to animate, which is really fun.
And you never recognise that they've come from a magic square. That's the kind of thing that they're trying to work towards. Conceal that process in something much more intensely visual. And the numbers at the bottom are actually the numbers in order that go through each magic square, because we like to put the numbers in as well to sort of, you know, whether it's demystifying it or mystifying it. Any questions? We've got time.
How did you choose those 3? It just purely you looked and said, that's an interesting
We
one.
haven't got that many order 10s because they're hard to get hold of. It's calculated. We've got a lot more,
but those 3 in particular have a nice contrast between them. So
yeah, the one on the left is very chaotic. So the numbers are sort of structured in a different way. The one in the middle, some magic squares have sub-magic squares within them. If you trace the line, it draws one and then it'll pop over to the other side and then pop over somewhere else and draw those. And then the final one is an extremely ordered one. So the formula for that, you could generate any number of those along that line. So that's a very ordered one.
These patterns as well are being highlighted so particularly nicely because we chose that visualization with the tetraminos. So in other, if we'd chosen a different visualization, those patterns wouldn't have come out like that.
Yeah, some of
It
them,
was just it's one of those things, it's a happy coincidence.
but we kind of curate the patterns and then we tweak them with the software until we get what we want, basically. This is a 1 minute warning.
Yeah, I was just going to mute them. No, I was going to ask a question, which is, so they're all deterministic.
Yeah.
And does each one have like a label, an algorithm or a generating?
It's different algorithms. to
Okay.
generate.
If you wanted to find that one again, what would you use to identify it?
We number
I mean,
them.
You know them.
I mean, we have them in a database. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we've got a huge database of
Ah,
magic
okay.
squares from anything up to order. What's the highest one?
I think 256.
56, yeah.
Somebody's identified a magic square.
Yes. Oh, they go higher than that.
Yeah.
So this is one of our goals, is to reduce the complexity in categorizing magic squares. So we're looking at ways that use the pattern that they generate like this to find common patterns, which mathematically are regarded as completely different. But we're looking at the pattern and we're saying that there are some that are identical. So we've written a paper, or we've written a couple of papers about it, arguing the case for simplifying that massive sort of array that can be made down to using the pattern that they make, the line that they draw, as the category. And
It's one of the fascinating things, for example, even displaying the order 256 keeps crashing my browser. It's so fascinating
yeah.
because drawing those lines, you know, a 256 by 256 magic square, it will struggle. My graphics card is not good enough. It's
See,
fascinating.
So you've got plenty of work to do in terms of exploring them further. You're not going to run out of squares.
yeah, it kind of goes, here's a visual thing for an exhibition. Oh, here's some research that we're going to try and form a paper around. So it's kind of dual pronged bit of work, basically.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I wonder, David, would you like to just say, and it can be very brief, something about your piece? What's up, David?
Which David do you mean?
Oh, yeah, yourself, yeah. Would you like to say something about your work?
It's a room full of Davids, I think.
So, David Upton. Like I say, it can be brief. No, yeah, sure.
This all started when I went to, am I right for sound? Can you hear me? This all started when I went to an exhibition at Tate about Turner. And I was fascinated by the way Turner was going into the details of his techniques, you know, the paper and the paint and pigments and brushes and all sorts of things he was using. And I asked myself, what could I do, you know, as a computer artist, what sort of thing would I do if I was doing it? I then fell down a very, very large rabbit hole, which I've only just emerged. But basically what I was trying to do was to use computational visual techniques to try and identify things, to try and modify pixels, treating it not so much from the point of view of, you know, trying to make a picture that does this or does that. I'm trying to mathematically let this pixel influence that pixel. And there's a lot of some of my pictures take two similar pictures and compare them in various ways. If the pixel at this point is this, then do that, and so on. You know, it's basically writing some very complex masks, I suppose. But there are all sorts of techniques that you can develop for doing it. And I spend many happy hours going down further rabbit holes trying to devise new techniques for shifting pixels. This one puts together two images. One is of London Transport control wires, which is not the most artistic of subject, but another one is of I think it's in, I can't remember where it is now. It's in Morocco, a goldsmith shop. And I found that if you superimpose the one over the other in a particular way, if you just superimpose them, you get a mess. But if you superimpose them in particular ways, you get all sorts of different effects. And this one, all the base metal that the London Transport were using suddenly turned into gold, which was rather nice. And it's in a way, it's I have difficulty just trying to decide what I am, because sometimes I'm generative, because I've set it up so it can do these things at random. It can choose things at random, superimpose them at random in different ways, and all I do is go through and look at it and every so often say, well, I like that one. Or you can do it, you can set it up and you can play with parameters and all this sort of thing. But it does come up with some extremely interesting variations. I think that's all I really need to say, Sean.
So potentially the algorithms that you're using could generate an infinite number of
Yes.
images. So you're selecting the images that you particularly like from that.
It's very much a matter of selection. If I sit down for half an hour at the end of the day, I can come up with, 30 or 40 images, of which probably one or two strike me and say, oh gosh, I like that one. Well, it's a good day. Sometimes one or none.
Great, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Can I just ask one question? That's based on two pictures, two
Yeah.
photographs. What happens if you go for 3 or 4? Do you get even nicer things, or?
And the beauty of it is, in a sense, that because you're changing a pixel individually, if you overlay 2 watercolor paintings, it gets muddier and browner. But if you overlay this, it changes the pixel altogether. So you're not getting 3 pixels in the same square. You're getting just 1 pixel, which is a result of a mathematical tussle between them. So you can have nice, clean, bright things which are made by overlaying several patterns.
You can have as many overlays as you want for different pictures.
Sorry?
You can have as many overlays as you want.
Yes. I mean, limited by obviously practicality and time. I haven't got much beyond 3 so far, because it does take a while to work out. And generatively, sometimes it takes a while to get something that really works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to ask Stephen Scrivener, maybe say a little bit about his work, because I think it follows on quite nicely. Because I would say this isn't what you might think it is. And that's all I'll say.
So I was a computer artist. I called myself a computer artist from 1972 to 1974. So I guess I was one of the early ones. And I think, my work came out of, I was obviously interested in non-objective abstraction. I was pretty much influenced by what was going on in the late 60s, early 70s. But I stopped making computer art around about 1984. And it was just, I stopped using the computer to make the stuff. I became the computer myself, just because I liked certain aspects of the process. I like that it's slow. So all of these are drawn by hand. I've been working for about the last year. Basically, this is the first I've gone off a square grid in 18 months. So, and that was because of the prescription on the side. And I thought, okay, I'll come off the square grid. So this is just simply a 4. We'll have to work it out. I think there's four. It's a square grid, not a square grid, but the cells are square. It's 4 down, it's 6 across, and basically I just set up a very simple set of rules. So in this case, I just make a choice about the colours that are going on the top, a choice about the colours that are going on the bottom. I say, okay, if they're on the row, then the lines go horizontally. That's how it all started. If it's on the top row, the lines go vertically. And I just draw these things, and then I move from one to the next one and so on. Recently, I've been moving off the horizontal on at least one side, and then probably on other sides as well. So it's very difficult to kind of describe what my process. And I still feel quite connected to, I suppose, because basically I work in a way that these could be produced by computer, because the rules that I use, I could program those. So I'm not composing. I don't like to compose things. because I just think, well, why do I put a small square here and a big square there, that kind of stuff. And I don't think my work's constructive either, in the sense that, you know, I think about construction as, it's different to composition, but you start with one piece and then you add another piece, you know, it's like, and then you try and make the whole thing work as a machine, let's say, or as a total. So I don't think I'm constructive. So at present, I don't know how to describe my process, but the best way is that I basically set up what it's going to look like on paper. I don't draw it out, I don't plan it. I just have, you know, a very simple diagram, the colours that I'm going to use, and then I spend the whole day drawing lines. And I think my work's kind of experimental because I will set these rules up, and I'll only change them when I'm repeating, when I feel I'm repeating what I'm doing, and then I'll change them. So I find my work quite experimental in a certain sense of experimental. I don't know whether you know of a German historian of science called Hans-Georg Reinberger, but he talks about what are called experimental systems. And he's basically talking about the fact that, you know, scientists will set up a whole set of apparatus to get them somewhere. They don't know where they're going, because if they know where they're going, it's not research. And this is what I like. I never know what they're going to look like until they're actually drawn. I don't destroy any of them. I don't change any of them. So they're all connected to each other, because the one that I've done before somehow changed what I'm actually going to do next. Yeah, so I kind of work in that kind of way. I set up something, I'll stick to a certain set of pens, I'll stick to a certain size of canvas, and, you know, I just draw lines. But I should have put my Instagram account there probably, because the website's got old work and my Instagram account has got new work. So you see a lot more of it there if you went to @Stephen Scrivener, but with a dot between Stephen and the Scrivener.
Really? So I said this is not what people might think it is. What people might think it is computer art. However, you can say, well, it's not, there's no computer involved. Well, the original term for the use of the term computer was to describe a human who computes. So it is computer art. You are the computer.
Yeah, and in the days that we were first writing computer, writing computer programs, they were executing rules.
Yeah. So I like that because it mixes this term computer and rules and so on. It's almost like it goes back to the early days of computer art, but it is also very contemporary as well. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you're doing this process by
Yeah.
hand,
Yeah.
it's a very human question.
Yeah.
Do you find it kind of meditative?
Yeah,
or
of course,
calming?
and that's why
That's
I like
why,
it.
yeah.
But I like it most because it's slow, and I just find that when I'm doing things too quickly, you have so many ideas. So while I'm working on these, a lot of ideas are coming up, but they're dying as well. So usually by the time I've done it or done a number, because I tend to work in series, I kind of know what to do next. But I always find that when I just sort of think, oh, I could do this, it's, you know, I've gone wrong.
Right.
Yeah, for example, I did one recently where I sort of broke my own rule. I divided the background. So this doesn't have a background, but I'm working now with a background, then you work on top. And I divided the background like a target.
Right.
And I keep looking at it and thinking, that doesn't make sense to me, because why have I done that? I could do anything. So, yeah, so I find that a lot of ideas that I've had will have died by the time, you know, I want to move on to the next step.
Do you get ink bleed?
No, actually, no. I don't work very much on paper. This was done on paper. I work on panel or on canvas, but I work on a very fine French hand.
Is that to avoid ink bleed, or is it just like you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you worked on ordinary, but I used a special paper for marker pen, but it's horrible paper to work on, because it just all wrinkles up. That's the first time I've done that. I've worked on watercolor paper and it didn't bleed on that. But I bought other papers and it just literally bleeds. But it doesn't bleed on panel if it's gessoed, and it doesn't bleed on canvas if it's a very fine canvas.
You said something really interesting. You said you don't destroy any of them
No.
along the way. So I was thinking, is that because there's error and what that would be and how was that?
I like the errors because obviously there are errors in this, and because it kind of
But what is an error is kind of the question I'm trying to circle around.
is a variation that I kind of intended. Yeah, but yeah, so you know, I don't. Oh, if I make an error in the process, I will correct it. So if I draw a line wrong, I will correct it because that's a error up in me as as a performer of an algorithm. But if it's a variation that's arisen because I just can't draw that accurately, then it's there and it's part of the kind of imperfections of my performance in that sense are part of the work.
That's always interesting, Bridget Riley, which,
Yeah.
you know, from the finest, from that perfection that she gets from the closest of the line.
The thing about her though, she plans, she really plans the drawings out, the work out in advance. So she'll do a lot of preparatory work before she produces the final work. I do think it's related, obviously, because a lot of the things that I get interested in are the emergent effects, like here, the kind of moire pattern kind of thing. I get interested in that. But I'm making kind of, I will make stuff that, I don't like, but I won't destroy it. But then I find somebody else likes it. So it's not too, do you know what I mean? I'm not looking for, I don't make a move on aesthetic ground because I like. I will make a move because something that's emerged interests me. I won't say I'm going to destroy this one because I don't find it aesthetically pleasing. Somebody else will.
So, and I follow you on Instagram, and you're posting these sometimes daily. New works, they're always seeing new ones, and it's interesting.
I'm slightly advanced in advance of myself, but I'm sort of thinking, okay, they're normally 4 days now because I just can't keep up.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Some other artists in the room who I don't necessarily know. Okay. Two. So, would you like to first like to say a bit about your work? Remind me of your name.
Eleanor Lee. I come up to the front.
Yeah. Well, if you're okay doing that. And like I said before, the thing I really liked about this was that it introduced us to people who I hadn't met before, like yourself. There we go. Ah, yes. Again, a couple of minutes, up to you. And maybe come here, actually. Well, the microphones are in the ceiling, but they should pick you up here.
So this piece is called Winter, Summer, Water, Fire. And basically it's done a very, very sort of old machine learning process whereby I curated a collection of shan shui paintings, mountain water paintings. And I did like basically I chose like a style image for each of those to create the style that I wanted. So it's very old technique, style transfer. And I'm actually a PhD student at Birkbeck, and I'm looking at the environmental effects of technology and machine learning. And one of the ways I look at it is through this analogy of the elements and what the different elements might mean in terms of different aspects of infrastructure, different aspects of data or technology which can produce climate change. But also one of the things I'm interested in is sort of the emotional aspects of the elements as well. So this is actually a very, very new direction in my work, in that I'm using the Chinese 5 elements as a way to look at water as like flow and communication and sort of different things within computing technologies, such as data, but also looking at it in terms of emotions as well. And I'm similarly looking at fire in a similar way. The image on the right-hand side. Fire in Chinese mythology and in the Chinese 5 elements is to do with sort of intelligence and ideas, and I associate it with algorithms and creating something through computing and the new sort of algorithms you have in terms of machine learning. But also it has relations to emotions as well. So all of these things are sort of combined and sort of within this piece, but this is very much my first sort of foray into sort of emotional sort of elements and computing.
Great, thank you very much. In the previous speaker, Steve was talking about handmade computer art. You're using machine learning, some of the latest technologies.
Yeah.
So within this exhibition, it's a wonderful variety. So
Can I just ask how it's been generated, though?
Yeah.
Mental.
So what I did was I created like a little data set of open source Shanshui paintings. And then I ran an algorithm over it to output sort of these stylized images. So these images are created by a machine learning, a very basic style transfer machine learning algorithm. And the style image I chose was something which I thought represented that particular element. So in the case of water, it's a very sort of blue kind of style image. And in the case of fire, it has fiery tones. So that's what I did to give these very classical mountain water paintings sort of a feel of the particular elements. And then I sort of just put them together onto a gradient, a very simply produced gradient, and put them together sort of digitally programmed to create this image.
Will you be producing ones for the metal and wood and the other elements? And, it'd be nice to see the whole.
Yeah, these are only 2 out of 5. But what I was doing is I was creating images, and actually the way I generally produce work isn't like this. Actually, most of the time, I mean it is, but the work I produce most of the time is performative in nature. I actually do a lot of performative lectures, and at the moment I'm producing work in WebXR, but related to the elements as well. And I usually use all 5 elements, and usually I have like 1 section for each element. But this particular one, I just thought these 2 juxtaposed just is all I need for this.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Another artist in the room. We haven't met before. Is that yourself? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
Your hand came up. Do you want to say something again?
Oh, very quickly, yeah.
You find your piece, so you're not.
Drink of wine, which well, it's the Janus Yomaboris. This is also made by hand as well. I thought it'd be a lot easier to explain this.
This piece, yeah.
Yeah, I've been working with screen-based medium for 20+ years, trying to convert from the analog field to digital. That's taken me to, with the range of online immersive spaces and easy build tools. I've done a lot of performance-based work with analog video. So what this work originates from is an existing performance mask, which I've then scanned with LiDAR and photogrammetry. I've remade into a 2-face 3D version. And this is also a digital asset on Tezos blockchain. And in the metadata of the work, which is the space that I like to occupy with statements which connect different versions of of the medium to different pieces. So this is the 2D print version, and there is a 3D model version. And if you find that, I like hiding Easter eggs into the works. Somewhere inside here, there is a hidden QR code. When you scan that on your phone, that will then take you into a immersive game world called Crypto Voxels, which is then an interstitial space. There's recently an exhibition which this work was made for called How to Make a Head, which was shown in Folkestone, of which that was there's the physical version was a projection from the floor into holographic film where this work's rotating. So the Janus is symbolic of portals and doorways and transitions. And so using the metadata of the digital asset, I'm trying to, and the print version, the 3D tokenized version and the exhibition version, that those three instances get connected together.
That's great. Okay, so you revealed some depth that I wasn't aware of. That's brilliant. Yeah.
So it goes on.
There's some of the artists in the room. Now, I can leave this up and speak to the artists on the one hand. Yeah. The screen's going to be a little bit messy, but I think it's good to be able to see the artwork. I might get that. Get that. Okay, I can move that. You can, but grab it there. Oh yeah, great. So well, I'm going to start from the top. Jack, would you like to say a little bit about your work? I'm just going to get it on the
Sure.
screen.
I'm happy to do that.
So I will say a little bit in that Jack is currently the subject of an exhibition that we have on in Leicester, as well as having the exhibitions here. I try and take them up to my home city of Leicester, where we have 20 of his pieces on screen. And that exhibition will be coming here to London in December. So you'll get to see 20 pieces. But I think, Jack, this is a brand new one from a brand new machine.
I'll talk about that in a moment at the end of my chat, yes.
Okay, so yeah, so give us a couple of minutes, Jack.
Okay, 5 points to make. First of all, I want to compliment the Computer Art Society for the help and support. It is very important because without them, I would not have a career as a generative artist. So thanks to all the people who helped me and all the supportive. That's very important. Right, analog machines. I work very differently from a programmer. I don't program anything. The analog machines, the programming is intrinsic to the machine's design, coupled with a sequential timer. It's that simple. And if I want to produce another program, I have to go away to the workshop and produce another machine. But so that is a vast difference between digital programming, which seems to me very convoluted and complicated. This is as simple as it can be. You get some metal, go into the workshop, and something comes out of it. So that's the second point. The next point is that I try to reduce everything to its simplest components. And I'm getting very philosophical and Zen here. The basic parameters that I work with are x-axis, y-axis, and pen rotation. So 2 of them are Cartesian coordinates. And from those simple movements, most of my graphic work is generated and quite a lot of the light work as well. So it couldn't be any simpler than that, apart from just having X and Y, which would be, as you know, a plotter. The next point is my preoccupation recently has been with the relationship between randomness and chaos. And I've been trying to push a lot of drawings towards near chaos and to the point where they disintegrate into full chaos. And this has allowed me to examine another idea that I've had, which is a philosophical one, the persistence of coherence in graphic outputs. Sounds very posh and esoteric, but it is becoming something that is fascinating me. Just how far does our mind and brain and eye coordinate and see something? Very much Hamlet and Polonius discussion. The clouds are a crocodile, no, the crocodile is something else, and so forth. And this fascinates me, which is the subjective response of the viewer, which is very much a point of art philosophy. And what allows me to do this, I've built recently, in quite recent years, something I call a randomizer. It's an analog machine which mimics the throw of a dice, and there are 6 possible outcomes, moving the X, the Y, and the pen. That's all. Finally, as shown, my latest preoccupation has been with line character. If you add all the things that you can have, X, Y, pen rotation, forward, reverse, and different concepts of how much time you spend, the next obvious one seemed to me to try and vary with either a flow pen or a chisel nib pen, how that contributed to the aesthetic effect and the simplicity. And this is an avenue I plan to go down in the future. And this is a very hot off the press example, which I'm delighted to have been chosen as the lead picture. So that's about it. The scanning part that I use is the digital input. I scan everything that's graphic, and the light machines go straight into a digital camera. So it's very much a hybrid. It starts off analog and then gravitates towards digital. That's about it. Any questions? I'd be pleased to answer.
Well, what I should add is that we've been lucky enough that Jack has donated 4 of his machines to us in Leicester. So at the Computer Arts Archive, we have 4 original drawing machines. And recently, it's worth commenting as well that Jack celebrated his 90th birthday.
Getting more ancient as the day goes by. Don't get old. I don't recommend it.
Are the machines getting better after all this time?
Probably not. I have to be careful not to repeat myself, but if I want to explore something different for this particular drawing, I had to make a different machine again. But all told, after having produced 60 to 70 machines, it's not that onerous. You just have to be careful you're not doing the same thing twice.
Yeah, good advice. Great, thanks, Jack. If you can mute your microphone afterwards, that'd be great.
Sorry?
If you can mute your microphone after we finish, but thank you very much for that. It's great.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Yeah, so through the list here, I think Angela should be our next speaker. I'm going to find your work. Are you okay to give us a short talk?
Yes, hello, thank you. Thanks, Sean. Thanks for the exhibition. I think it is very meaningful for generative artists to exhibit in this kind of a group of people who've been working for so long in a particular area, and really fascinating to see what other artists are doing with computers. But this piece sells is it's a classic approach to generative art where you take an algorithm and kind of play around with it, see what it can produce, maybe something unexpected. You're using it to create a picture or an image and not necessarily to decide, like solve a computer science problem. You're using it to create an artwork. So here it's just what's called a Voronoi partition, where you put a point on a flat surface on a plane, and you divide that plane up by colors. Every color, a different color based on how close you are to a certain point. And what's a little different about this picture is there are many points, and the points move around, and there are different layers of partitioning going on in the image. So you get a more dense pattern than what you might be used to seeing with a typical partition of space. That's it. As an artist right now, I'm really interested in the shape of things, which is very related sometimes to the pattern that things might have. Yeah, it's great to be a part of the exhibition, and it's great to be on the cover of the catalog. Thank you very much, especially with Alex May or Peter Hardy coming before you on these covers. It's like very gratifying.
So I would say that personally, what I liked about the image, I particularly like the colours, but also it made me think of sort of cross section of like dermis, skin, like different layers of skin or something in a nice way.
Yeah, so I was trying to work with that idea of cell and membrane, and I thought, well, I try Voronoi and see if it will give me something close to the pattern that I would like to have for this next system.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so shall we ask for a few words from Molte next?
Yes, if you want. Hello?
Yeah, that'd be great if you could.
Yeah, okay. Can you show?
Oh, sorry. Trying to do more than one thing at a time.
Okay. Okay, this is just a small set of examples from a library which is actually meant just to produce textures for 3D environments, 3D sculptures, and yeah, social spaces, and it all started lately as very 10 years ago as a work on Twitter, as a Twitter bot. But because Twitter is extinct by X and the bots are not allowed anymore, I started to rewrite all the stuff like a commentary system and a chat system and things like that. And the basic thing behind this, what you see is actually based on text. So you have input text, and what you get is that the algorithm is looking for what do I use, what do I combine, where do I lie this, which color I use, and how do I combine the colors, and what grid I take. So currently the grid is there are several grids available, 3x3 to 6x6, and there are just a subset, a very small set of colors, which is awesome, gets this awesome variation of colors because they are combined in light and shadow and other things. So it's actually just green, yellow, red, blue, black, and white what you see. Anything else is just a combination of things that had been combined by the algorithms. So the shades of yellow that you see are just because there's a little bit red light or red shadow inside. And if it's getting brown, there's also something like black shadow or something like this.
Well, I think the colours work really well, but the colours and the forms are very complementary, I think.
Yes, because it's just the basic colors. And lately it's producing something still very rich in color, but quite complementary. And sometimes I don't know why. It just appeared to come that this is the result. And I'm mimicking a little bit what we are mimicking a little bit the roots of language. And if you apply this into abstract shapes, then you get these results more or less.
That's it. Okay, thank you very much. Next on the list here is Paul Hertz. We'll just find you if you're happy to say anything.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I think you should be able to get my video, although I'm not quite sure where I am there. Yeah, here we are. Okay.
I think it's because I'm sharing the screen.
Well, people can see me on the participants if they want. I turned on my video. So if you're curious as to what I look like, there I am. So the work that I have in the exhibition, El Guateque del Diablo de las Flores, or the Flower Devil's Romp, grew out of some experiments that I've been doing with relating audio signals to pixel data. And in particular, I've had a strategy of taking an audio file and wrapping it into a space filling curve and then mapping it onto a 2D image space, onto a bitmap. And what that gives me are all sorts of patterns that you would probably not see in the 1D representation of the signal. And this is research that's really been part of a long-term commitment to working with music and visual arts together. A large part of my work is actually collaborations with composers. So this particular work grew out of an algorithm that I wrote to produce rhythms rather than frequencies, using this strategy of writing audio data onto a space-filling curve and then mapping it onto an image. So in the rhythms show up as blocky elements rather than as continuously varying elements as an audio wave would be. In this case, I was superimposing many different rhythmic elements, but they're all being generated by the same little L system at different scales, which is to say at different sizes and different depths of recursion, which is to say more or less complexity to the shape. There's a set of colors that I've used within the work that I was doing previous to this. And actually, let me give you a link right here in the chat to the work that this grew out of, which is a 15-minute video animation with live music by my collaborator, Christopher Walczak. So fundamentally, this is indeed generative artwork. I've produced many different layers with my software, and then some of the final work of compositing was done in commercial software. And it's actually, if you were to reduce it in size, it's only 512 by 256 pixels, which to me was kind of astonishing. They think that I'm actually working very small. But I work with prints, so this actually gets printed out in my studio at something like 18 by 36 inches.
Right, thank you. It looks very good in the print here as well.
I would imagine so. And it's really great, I should say, to be in this exhibition with people whose work I've been following for years and with people who are completely new to me.
Thank you. Well, also this goes into our archive, of course, so it'd be great to have this piece in with all the other pieces. Thank you. So I'm checking other names. Angela. I'm sure there were some more. Let's have a look. Are there any more? Oh. I'm just trying to find if there are any more people here, artists who would like to say a few words.
I'm happy to say a few words.
I was looking for you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just quickly introduce yourself. Yeah.
Hello, so I'm Shanique Thompson. I am currently a PhD student at De Montfort University, looking at sensory digital fashion engagement. And the piece that I have in this exhibition, which is amazing to be part of this, is so many really talented and amazing artists. So I'm looking at kind of like manipulating the way that we think about digital fabrics and kind of pushing it beyond the boundaries of just mimicking the kind of conventional fashion. So this piece was a lot about kind of like turning off gravity, turning things upside down, having wind come from multiple places, having that iridescent shine to kind of really kind of push the barriers of what fashion is. And my focus is very much on intimate apparel fashion, because I want to focus on the social cultural elements that the materials involved in things like corsets have built into them. So this whole piece is everything about kind of like those really intimate, kind of soft but sheer and velvet materials kind of brought together, and manipulating the kind of sensory elements and the twinning that goes on in digital fashion, and focusing on like the material exploration and kind of to really trying to push those boundaries. And so a lot of it is kind of me messing around with things and trying to break it as much as I can, which does involve crashing the program quite a lot, which is so fun because it's kind of like seeing the limitations and thinking about where it can go.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
An image, it had a sort of dynamism to it, a movement to it, which I just thought was a very interesting image. Right, thank you. I think we do have at least one more. Dennis, were you?
Yes, can you hear
You're
me?
still- Yeah, I am just going to find your piece.
And
Please introduce yourself. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm Dennis Summers, and I want to thank CAS for putting this together. I'm pleased that I joined only a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to be in a show like this with so much variety of both construction and the actual imagery. Oh wait, I can show you my video too. There you go. And so the still image that you're seeing is a still image from a 20-minute video. And so although I think it looks nice as a 20-minute video, I mean, as a still image, you really have no sense of what it looks like, although the web link is up there so you can watch an excerpt of it on the internet. And so similarly to Steve, who spoke much earlier, this is a kind of generative piece. It's not algorithmically generative in the sense that I wrote anything because I'm not smart enough to write computer code. I currently use the software called Blackmagic Fusion. I've used other off-the-shelf applications in the past that have since been canceled. And I basically create a pattern and then I cycle the elements of this pattern through the color spectrum, but each element is cycled differently. And originally, the very first piece I did in this series was literally just a big dot on a square, and the color cycling was just out of sequence just a little bit, so that, you know, it started out, it was like red on red, and then slowly it became yellow on red, and, you know, blue on green, and shifted over time, then looped back to its original color at the beginning. And then as I've done many of these started in the early 2000s. As I've continued to do these, I've grown bored with more simple patterns, and I've really pushed both the initial creation of the pattern, and the way they change over time. And I started cheating to achieve just more interesting looking videos. So it's not necessarily a set sequence. I might dissolve in different things over time and mix it up, just because as I've learned more, I've been able to do more, and it keeps it interesting for myself. And given that this is video, I'm looking forward to the possibility of CAS showing video in the future, because obviously I'm biased, but I think video, you know, it's so easy to show nowadays. I think it would be an advantage. And I think I've covered everything. And if there's questions, I'm happy to answer.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I think next year, I'm pretty sure we'll include a video submission as well. So consider putting a piece in then as well.
Great.
Okay, so I'm willing to say something about my work if
that'd be great. Yeah. Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
Cynthia Rubin. It's the bright one that was one of the first ones, kind of very brightly colored reds and blues. Yes, you found it. Great.
Good description.
Okay. So thank you so much for this show. I want to echo what everybody's been saying, that it's been a great opportunity to see a lot of different work, and I love hearing what people have to say right now. So this piece is part of what work that I've been doing, working with microscopic life, looking through a microscope, but also it incorporates this kind of mystery of the universe that I'm interested in, kind of as somebody who started as an abstract or nearly abstract painter, that still mystery of relationships that we can do to stir people's imaginations. So this is a piece which has been in and out of the computer many times. It's not using code, but it's using every other method that you can imagine that's not code. So there is some plankton and some salt from the electron scanning microscope. And I actually, at the top, you can see a diatom, the red one with the little dots on it. And in the lower right, you can actually see a piece of salt from pretty much somewhat realistically. And then there are textures that come from the salt in the upper left, and some of the other textures come from the salt and debris. There's some hand drawing of the circles and just drawing it and then scanning it back in and recombining it. And then what's unusual in this piece, unusual for me, is that I was invited to be in a show the influence of Picasso. And this is not actually the piece that I put in that show, but along the way I experimented with, I think it was Midjourney. I went in through Night Cafe, and it gave me that kind of folded texture that you see over on the right, which is I imagine what the AI thought was a way to Picasso-ize my work. And so that was an interesting element to add into this. And I've been very interested in breaking borders. A lot of my works now, with plankton, I've had things come out of the border. This piece I actually reconfigured for this show, trying to fit the proportions somewhat. And so that's it. I mean, it's highly textured and the colors are all my own. They make no sense in terms of plankton, but many of the textures do this kind of like moving around in that unknown universe. So if there are any questions? Okay, I do want to add that my website is extremely slow loading at the moment, but it does work. I don't have too many of these works on it. I will add some more, and there's some on my Instagram page, which is CB Rubin Studio. So,
well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Have anybody else out there who would like to say something?
Sean, can I raise a question of general interest?
Okay, Jack, yeah.
Right, I'll click the video this time too. What has interested me, not only about this work, but generally, is that what emerges from not only artificial intelligence, but particularly artificial intelligence raises this question about authorship, because it raises the question of whether or not our authorship ideas have to be rejigged because they're compromised by AI borrowing from other sources which are not ours. And if you write a program and an algorithm, then it's your program for a particular computer. If you build a machine, then that is your authorship as well. But it's a question, it's a philosophical one that probably is the elephant in the room. We'll have to address it sometime, and maybe we'll have to have a conference devoted to those very sticky questions. What does anyone think in the audience?
Yeah, if I can answer that, because I think I kind of brought up the elephant. I've been really afraid of AI, and I made a real point in this image to work on it a lot so that if I didn't tell you that the influence was there, you wouldn't see it. But it did spur my ideas. And in a lot of ways, for myself, I think that many of us have been doing AI thinking, right? We go to museums, we look at work, and we say, I really like the relationships or the color palette or whatever. But I think it's a really great question and something to really talk about. Like, where's the line? Like, how much do you have to change it? Almost that the legal definitions of what it means when you take somebody else's work, and there, you know, in some countries, it's like you have to change it 50%. And in other countries, you have to change it 75% to have it be legal to reuse.
It's a,
But we
it's a
do-
huge suggestion, and it probably is one for a dedicated conference, like you suggest, Jack.
But we are standing on the shoulders of giants, though. That has to be taken into account. I think that, but that's part of it. We are borrowing, but in a subjective sense, as opposed to in a more physical sense. But it is a good question. Thank you for your attention.
I think maybe it does suggest that that's a topic we ought to save for one of our talks or something. So what I will say now, unless there are some people out there I've missed here or no, then it just leaves me to say thank you very much for all the artists for submitting work. I hope you enjoy the exhibition. For those of us here, it's now time for some wine and to have a look at the exhibition. So have a look at it online if you're online, and let us know what you think. If you found it a valuable exercise to be involved or interesting as an audience member, please get in touch. Thanks very much.
I'll get out.
Okay. Well, that's more or less as I was expecting.